On the 12th of August, 1985, a Boeing 747 climbed out of Tokyo carrying 524 people home for the summer holiday. 12 minutes into the flight, something at the back of the aircraft tore itself apart. And for the next 32 minutes, 3 men in the cockpit fought to fly a machine that no longer had any controls at all. They did not have a rudder. They did not have elevators. They did not have ailerons. Everything a pilot uses to steer an aeroplane was gone in a single second. What they did next is still studied by every airline on Earth. It was the busiest travel week of the Japanese year. Obon, the festival when the whole country goes home to be with family. Haneda Airport was overflowing. Flight 123 to Osaka was completely full, businessmen, grandparents, and 50 children under the age of 12. In the cockpit sat one of Japan Airlines' most experienced crews. The captain, Masami Takahama, was a 49-year-old instructor with over 12,000 flying hours. He was so trusted that on this flight he sat in the right seat, quietly supervising his first officer, who was training for his own command. At 6:12 in the evening, they lifted off into a clear sky. The climb was smooth. The cabin crew began their service. For 11 minutes, Flight 123 was the most ordinary aircraft in the world. And then, at 24,000 feet, over the waters of Sagami Bay, there was a sound. It was not an explosion in the way people imagine one. It was a deep, muffled boom from far behind the cockpit, followed instantly by a roar of rushing air. The cabin filled with white mist as the pressure inside the aircraft escaped in less than a second. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. In the cockpit, warning lights lit up across the panel. The first officer's first words, captured on the recorder, were simple and confused. Something had happened to the right side of the aircraft. The captain took control. What none of them could see was what had just happened behind them. At the very back of the aircraft, a hidden crack had finally given way. The rear pressure bulkhead, the great dome that holds in the cabin's air, had burst. The blast of escaping air rushed backwards and blew off most of the vertical tail fin. And it did something far worse. Running through that tail were the aircraft's 4 hydraulic systems, the lines that carry the pressure a pilot needs to move every control surface. All 4 were severed at once. The fluid drained into the sky. Within seconds, the crew had no rudder, no elevators, no ailerons, no flaps. They were holding controls connected to nothing. Here is the part that no simulator had ever prepared anyone for. An aircraft with no hydraulics should be uncontrollable. It should roll over and dive within a minute. But Takahama and his crew found the one thing they had left, the engines. By pushing the throttles forward, the nose rose. By pulling them back, it sank. By running the left and right engines at different power, the aircraft could be nudged to turn. It was not flying. It was balancing a 200-ton machine on nothing but thrust and instinct. But the aircraft would not hold still. With no tail to steady it, it began to wallow through the sky in long, sickening waves, climbing, then dropping, rolling one way, then the other. Each wave lasted about 90 seconds. As the nose rose, speed bled away and the aircraft threatened to stall. As it dropped, speed built and the ground rushed closer. The crew fought every swing by hand, chasing the throttles up and down, timing their pushes against a rhythm no one had ever been trained to feel. On the ground, controllers watched the aircraft's track crawl across their screens in a slow, drunken weave. They cleared every other flight out of the way and held Tokyo's runways open. But the crew of 123 could not point the aircraft where they wished. They could only follow wherever its wallowing carried them, and try to survive the next wave. In the cabin behind them, passengers pulled out pens. Knowing what was happening, some began to write notes to the families they were sure they would never see again. Those notes were later found in the wreckage. For 32 minutes they held on. Air traffic control offered them any airport they wanted. The crew could only reply that the aircraft was uncontrollable. They were not steering towards safety. They were simply refusing to let it fall. As the minutes passed, the aircraft drifted inland, away from the sea and toward the mountains northwest of Tokyo. The crew lowered the landing gear, hoping it might steady the aircraft. For a short while it seemed to help. On the recorder, for one moment, there is something almost like hope. But the mountains were rising faster than they could climb. The ground warning alarm began to call out. The captain's last recorded words were an order to raise the nose, shouted again and again as the crew pulled with everything they had. At 6:56 in the evening, 32 minutes after the bang, the right wingtip clipped a ridge on Mount Takamagara. The aircraft cartwheeled into the forest of Osataka. Of the 524 people on board, 520 died. It remains the deadliest crash of a single aircraft in the history of flight. But the tragedy of Flight 123 was not only in the crash. It was in what happened after. The wreckage lay high in remote mountains, in darkness. A United States military transport spotted the burning site within 20 minutes and offered to guide rescuers in. Japanese rescue teams did not reach the mountain until the following morning, nearly 14 hours later. When they finally arrived, they found 4 survivors. All of them were female, all seated on the left side, toward the back. One was an off-duty flight attendant. One was a 12-year-old girl, pulled from the trees by helicopter. And they told doctors something that haunts this story to this day. In the hours after the crash, in the dark, they had heard other voices around them. A child calling out. An adult answering. Voices of people who had survived the impact, and who, through the long cold hours on the mountain, did not survive the wait. The off-duty flight attendant later said she remembered the beat of a helicopter overhead in the night, and then the sound moving away. To this day, families ask the same question the survivors' words force upon us: how many more of the 520 might have lived, if help had reached the ridge before morning? So why did the bulkhead burst? The answer had been sealed inside the aircraft for 7 years. In 1978, this exact aeroplane had scraped its tail on a runway during a landing in Osaka. The damage went right through that rear pressure bulkhead, and Boeing was sent to repair it. The correct repair called for a single continuous splice plate, fastened with 3 rows of rivets. Instead, the technicians used 2 separate plates and, along the critical join, only a single row of rivets did the work of the 2 the design required. To the eye, the repair looked perfect. Underneath, it had roughly halved the strength of the join. Every time the aircraft climbed and the cabin pressurized, that weakened seam flexed. A tiny crack formed, and with every single flight it grew a fraction wider. For 7 years and more than 12,000 flights, it held. On the 12th of August, 1985, on one ordinary climb out of Tokyo, it finally reached its limit, and let go. The notes written in those 32 minutes were returned to the families. One father wrote to his children to be good to their mother. A husband wrote that he did not want to die. They are, more than any report, the true record of that flight. Because of Flight 123, the way the world inspects repairs and pressure bulkheads was changed forever. Aircraft were redesigned so that a single failure could never again cut every hydraulic line at once. The crew's desperate method of flying on thrust alone was studied so seriously that it was later used to build backup systems for exactly that emergency. Captain Takahama and his crew never regained control. But for 32 minutes, with nothing but 2 throttles and their own hands, they kept 524 people in the air far longer than anyone believed was possible. In the end, the aircraft was doomed the moment that bang was heard. What was not doomed was the fight.